Land of the Heavenly Kings. Enigmatic. Beyond transcendental. Toraja. Breathtaking landscape. Home of the mighty buffaloes. Picturesque villages, untouched by modern life. Upholding old traditions. Displayed in crafts and feasts. Incredibly preserved. Remarkable funeral rites. Where the king's family comes together from all over the world. A magical celebration of an eternal journey to the afterlife. An ancient way of life celebrated. And beyond Toraja, in Sulawesi, there is a myriad of marvels. From prehistoric megaliths to the race of a lifetime. A feast of the senses. Endless stream of excitement. A never-ending adventure. In Sulawesi, wonderful Indonesia.
Shalom, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and all participants. Welcome to the third national webinar of English Education Study Program. Today, Friday, the 25th of August, 2023, until tomorrow, Saturday, the 26th of August 2023, with them strengthening literacy skills and independent learning in the era of Society 5.0. Ladies and gentlemen, and all participants, my name is Silvani. It is a precious time and chance for me to be your master of ceremony on this very special occasion. First of all, let's say thanks to God Almighty, who has given us guidance, happiness, healthy, and mercy so we can attend and participate in this special event without any obstacle. Honorable Dean of Faculty of Teacher Training and Education of Toraja Christian University of Indonesia, Honorable to Excellency keynote speaker from United States of America and Indonesia, especially the head of APBSI, Asosiasi Program Studi Pendidikan Bahasa Inggris. Honorable to all lecturer, teacher, and student, and all participants of national webinar of English Education Study Program. Well, ladies and gentlemen, and all participants, let's begin this event by opening prayer. The opening prayer will be delivered by Dr. Selvi Panggua, MPD. Time is yours. Dr. Selvi, can you hear my voice?
Sorry, Miss Silvani.
Okay.
It's my time.
Opening prayer.
Oh,
Miss. Yeah.
oh Pak Roni, I think. Pak Dan. Okay.
He's not in this room.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, let's pray. Let's pray. Dear loving Heavenly Father, we praise you, we glorify you in this beautiful morning. We thank you so much for healthy bodies and healthy minds. We thank you so much for all the families and all the situation and condition that we enjoy this morning. Thank you for all your many blessings in our life. And in this special morning, we are going to start our national webinar held by English Education Study Program of UKI Toraja. We pray that you will be with us from the beginning until the end of our webinar. Bless all the facilities that we use, the internet connections, laptops, computers, and we pray for all the keynote speakers, presenters, and participants of this seminar. We pray that you will help us to do everything that we are going to do. And may we glorify you in all that we say and do. Father, this is our prayer. Forgive our sins. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dr. Selvi,
My pleasure.
for the opening prayer. Move on to the next agenda is singing national anthem of Indonesia, Indonesia Raya. Okay, let's watch together the short video about profile of Toraja Christian University of Indonesia.
Ih, Didit. Dit,
Milka,
mana bukan dia tuh?
saya nak jalan-jalan.
Oh, maksud si persiapan ujian?
Melo, tapi kendalanya setelah ujian nggak tahu pola-pola lain.
Yuk, kuliah di UPI Toraja.
Universitas Kristen Indonesia Toraja atau UPI Toraja merupakan perguruan tinggi swasta di bawah naungan LL Dikti Wilayah 9 Sultan Batara. UPI Toraja terletak di Provinsi Sulawesi Selatan. Rektorat UPI Toraja beralamat di Jalan Nusantara nomor 12 Kota Makalu.
Gedung ini merupakan kampus 1 UPI Toraja yang letaknya di pusat kota Makale, Kabupaten Tanah Toraja.
UPI Toraja sebagai bagian dari pendidikan Toraja memiliki visi yaitu menjadi perguruan tinggi yang bermutu dan berkarakter melayani. UPI Toraja terpanggil untuk ikut serta dalam upaya mencerdaskan anak bangsa serta memajukan kehidupan bangsa dan negara. Dalam mengemban tugas dan panggilan tersebut, UPI Toraja dibina dan dikembangkan dalam semangat melayani dengan moto menjadi berkat bagi semua. Di UPI Toraja terdapat 5 fakultas, 1 program magister atau S2, dan 16 program studi. Fakultas Ekonomi terdiri dari 2 program studi, yaitu program studi manajemen dan program studi pariwisata. Fakultas Teknik ada 4 program studi. Program studi Teknik Sipil, program studi Teknik Mesin, program studi Teknik Informatika, dan program studi Teknik Elektro. Untuk Fakultas Teologi ada program studi Teologi. Fakultas Keguruan dan Ilmu Pendidikan memiliki 7 program studi, yaitu Magister Pendidikan Bahasa Indonesia, Program Studi Pendidikan Bahasa dan Sastra Indonesia, Program Studi Pendidikan Guru Sekolah Dasar atau PGSD, Program Studi Bahasa Inggris, Program Studi Pendidikan Matematika, Program Studi Pendidikan Fisika, dan Program Studi Teknologi Pendidikan. Sedangkan untuk Fakultas Pertanian, ada program studi agroteknologi dan program studi pengelolaan perkebunan kopi.
ini adalah Perpustakaan Pusat UKI Toraja. Di basement juga terdapat sebuah klinik. Klinik ini merupakan kerjasama antara Rumah Sakit Elim Rantepao dengan UKI Toraja.
Kampus 2 UKI Toraja berada di Kecamatan Talung Lipu, Kabupaten Toraja Utara. Kampus 3 UKI Toraja terletak di pusat kota Rantepao, Kabupaten Toraja Utara. Mari bergabung bersama kami di Universitas Kristen Indonesia Toraja dalam menghasilkan manusia yang takut akan Tuhan, memiliki kemampuan akademik, vokasi, dan profesional sehingga dapat menciptakan, mengembangkan, menerapkan, dan menyebarluaskan ilmu pengetahuan, teknologi, dan seni untuk kepentingan kemaslahatan hidup masyarakat dan kebudayaan nasional serta menciptakan penyelenggaraan pendidikan tinggi dan pengelolaan perguruan tinggi melalui praktik pendidikan terbaik. UKI Toraja menanti.
Bagaimana UKI Toraja? Mantap kan?
Mantap sekali. Fix, saya ke UKI Toraja.
Wow, great. Proud to be a lecturer and students of Toraja Christian University of Indonesia Toraja. Well, move to the next agenda. We will hear short report from the head of English Education Study Program, and the speech will be delivered by Dr. Marcus Deli Girik Alo. MPD, time is yours.
Well, thank you, Ms. Silvani. Can you hear my voice?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed participants, distinguished speakers, and our guests, good morning and best wishes for all of us. We are pleased to welcome you to the third national webinar of English Education Study Program. So today, we delve into the theme strengthening literacy skills and independent learning in society 5.0. In a rapidly changing world, adapting our teaching method is crucial to equip learners for focus in society 5.0. This webinar is more than the professional gathering. It shows our dedication to advancing English education over the 2 days. So expert will lead us discussion on fostering literacy and independent learning in students. Our theme reflects the challenges and opportunities of today. We'll explore innovative approaches that enhance literacy and nurture lifelong learners in the tech humanity era. So as speakers, we'll discuss topics from digital resources, for literacy to cultivating critical thinking. Before we proceed further, so I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speakers who have graciously accepted our invitation to share their knowledge. I also extend my thanks to the organizing committee for their dedication and hard work in bringing this event for fruition. To the participants, your active engagement in the upcoming session is what will truly make this webinar a success. I encourage you to ask questions, participate in discussions, and exchange ideas. For it is through collaboration that we can drive meaningful change in education. Once again, on behalf of organizing committee, I extend a warm welcome to all to you to the third national webinar of the English Education Study Program. Let us embark on this journey of exploration and enlightenment, and may we emerge from this event with a renewed sense of purpose and deeper understanding of how to empower our learners for success, especially in this era of Society 5.0. So I think that's all my report and the third webinar. Thank you, Ms. Silvani, and thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Deli, for the report. And the next agenda is opening speech. The speech will be delivered by Dean of Faculty of Teacher Training and Education of Toraja Christian University of Indonesia, Dr. Andus Rubianus, MPD. Time is yours. Disilakan, Pak.
Baik. Selamat pagi.
Selamat pagi, Pak Dekan.
Selamat pagi dan salam sejahtera. Patut kita bersyukur bahwa pagi ini kita sudah boleh berkumpul dalam satu ruang yang sangat besar ini, yang dibuat bersama oleh tim, yaitu dalam virtual, di mana kita sekarang terhubung antara Indonesia dengan luar negeri. Itu barangkali ya. Kegiatan yang kita lakukan pada saat ini adalah merupakan kegiatan yang sudah terprogram setiap tahun, sekali setahun, yang dilaksanakan di Fakultas Keguruan dan Ilmu Pendidikan, masing-masing program studi seperti yang terjadi saat ini, yaitu webinar yang dilakukan oleh program studi pendidikan bahasa Indonesia. Kalau kita melihat topik ada era 5.0, sebenarnya pada era 5.0 nanti itu kita akan masuk dalam satu dunia yang agak lain, dan juga ada model pendidikan yang akan ada sementara dikembangkan dan akan mungkin digunakan oleh kita semua nanti untuk menghadapi era 5.0. Kembali ke masalah kita pada hari ini. Pertama-tama juga saya mengucapkan banyak terima kasih yang sebesar-besarnya atas kesediaan para keynote speaker yang tercatat namanya, yaitu dengan hormat saya sebut namanya Prof. Jasmine Cook dan James Cohen yang berasal dari luar Indonesia. Dan juga terima kasih kepada keynote speaker yang ada di Indonesia, terutama yang oleh program studi pendidikan bahasa Indonesia mengundang pembicara dari asosiasi, baik itu pusat maupun daerah, dengan hormat saya sebut namanya Paulus Kuswandono, PhD, Dr. Edi Wahyono, SSM HUM, dan kolega kita di Sulawesi ini yang sudah sering ke Toraja, yaitu Dr. Umi Khairati Syam, MPD. Juga saya mengucap terima kasih kepada pembicara yang dari dalam, ada 3 orang, yaitu yang pertama Victor Simarlata, MPD, yang kedua Yisrael N. Nasalata, MPD, dan yang ketiga Charlie Baka, MPD. Saya berharap materi-materi yang ada melalui keynote speaker kita tadi itu dapat memberikan nuansa yang lebih memacu kita untuk menghadapi masa-masa yang akan datang, terutama dalam proses-proses pembelajaran yang kita lakukan, baik itu di dalam kampus maupun yang dilakukan di luar kampus. Mungkin apa yang akan dilakukan nanti ini akan memberikan dampak langsung, juga akan memberikan dampak yang tidak langsung, baik kepada aktivitas kita sebagai dosen, sebagai tenaga pendidik di sekolah, karena saya diinformasikan bahwa dalam webinar ini juga ada peserta dari partisipan dari guru-guru yang ada di Toraja maupun yang ada di luar Toraja, juga memberikan dampak kepada peserta, yaitu mahasiswa yang hadir juga dalam kegiatan ini. Saya berharap kegiatan ini yang dilakukan oleh PBI dapat bermanfaat. Tak lupa saya mengucapkan juga terima kasih kepada tim PBI yang telah melakukan kegiatan ini berdasarkan surat keputusan dekan untuk memfasilitasi terjadinya seminar yang akan memberikan nuansa yang sangat bagus menurut saya demi untuk mencapai visi dan misi kita di UKI Toraja. Dan akhirnya saya selaku dekan mengucapkan selamat berseminar sehari mungkin atau 2 hari. Semoga kegiatan ini diberkati dan mendapat makna yang luar biasa demi untuk kemuliaan nama Tuhan. Dengan demikian saya mengucapkan selamat berseminar. Tuhan memberkati. Makasih.
Okay, let us give applause for us all. Stay healthy and keep spirit for 2 days. Okay, before we move to the next agenda, we have photo session right now, and I invite Ms. Renzi to lead us, please.
Thank you, Ms. Silvani. I will lead the photo session. Please turn on your camera, please. Turn on your camera. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the next slide. Oh. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the last one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Renzi. Ladies and gentlemen and all participants, we will enter to the first session. Okay, for the first presentation, and I invite our moderator, Dr. Selvi Panggua, MPD, for the first keynote speaker. Time is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Silvani. Can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Is it clear? Well,
Yes.
so I am honored to be the moderator of the first session of this webinar held by English Education Study Program of UKI Toraja. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen and students from Indonesia. So may I have your attention, please? Our webinar is about to begin. So please have a nice seat, and thank you very much for preparing yourself to join this national webinar held by English Education Study Program of UKI Toraja. Respectable the Dean of Teacher Training and Education Faculty of UKI Toraja, Dr. Randus Rubianus, MPD, the Honorable, the Head of English Education Study Program, as well as the Chairing Committee for this webinar, Dr. Markus Deli Girikalo, MPD, Excellencies, keynote speakers and presenters, the Honorable, all lecturers of UKI Toraja, and maybe teachers from senior and high school students, distinguished guests, students, and all participants of this webinar. I'm Selvi Panggua, the moderator for the first session of this webinar, and I'm pleased to see you all and welcome you all to this national webinar with the theme Strengthening Literacy Skills and Independent Learning in the Era of Society 5.0. First of all, may I briefly introduce you our first keynote speaker this morning. She is an international speaker from Northern Illinois University, USA, Professor Jessamine Cook-Plagwitz. She is an associate professor of German and Applied Linguistics, coordinator, Foreign Language Instructional Technology Graduate Certificate Program, and director of undergraduate studies. Talking about her education, she got her undergraduate degree from Dalhousie University and her master degree from Dalhousie University, and she got her doctoral degree from Queen's University. So Professor Jessamine is currently working on a book on technology enhanced language learning, or TELL, that outlines a variety of approaches to employing technology in foreign language education and provides a comprehensive analysis of technological tools best suited to a variety of instructional goals. She is especially interested in alternate assessment methods, games, and gamifications in foreign language education, and the use of virtual environment for online foreign language course delivery. She is passionate teaching the German language, especially at the elementary and intermediate levels. And she is a researcher, and she has published some of her research, and here are her selected publication. The first, the title is A New Language for the Next Generation, Why Second Life Works for the N-Gen, World Language Teaching in the N-Generation. And the second, Learning in 3D Multi-User Virtual Environments, Exploring the Use of Unique 3D Attributes for Online Problem-Based Learning. And the next publication entitled New Direction in CALL, an objective introduction to Second Life. And also, she is one of the editors of Teaching with Technology. Yes. So this publication, so really relating to our theme for this national webinar, that connecting about or relating about literacy skills, where in this era, most of people are trying to use the artificial intelligence, and she's going to present a presentation relating to this topic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Prof. Jessamine described herself when she's not in professor mode that she enjoys spending time with her family. So not only entire her life doing research and publication, but she also enjoys spending time with her family, hanging out with her 2 dogs and 3 cats. She loves doing yoga, learning to write, learning Japanese, knitting, crocheting, and lots of reading. Wow, sounds cool, doesn't it? Well, before the presentation begins, let me inform how the presentation will be going on. So the first, Prof. Jessamine will present her presentation. It may last for 15 minutes. Second, we will have Q&A sessions and followed by conclusion. And attention for all the participants, all of us, please make sure that you muted your microphone during the presentation. So now, please allow me to welcome the first keynote speaker of this national webinar, Professor Jessamine Cook Plagwitz, to deliver her presentation. Professor Jessamine, the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. And thank you everybody for inviting me to speak today. Can you hear me okay? Is my audio all right?
Yeah, is it clear?
Perfect. Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And let's see, there it is. All right, perfect. Looks like it should work.
Yes.
So I thought this is excellent. This is a really good topic. It's very timely. The students and teachers and professors are all sort of worried about, yes, independent learning. There's been a push for that, but also just learning in general. So I thought, one of the hot topics around here lately has been ChatGPT and artificial intelligence and where those tools fit in education today. And I do apologize because you did mention the dogs and the cats. And of course, as soon as I started talking, they all came in. So hopefully they'll be quiet. So I thought, let's talk a little bit about the pros and the cons of these tools and, how we can maybe make peace with them. I know when ChatGPT was sort of first introduced, it was introduced to us as educators as a threat. Oh no, the students are all going to start cheating. Oh no, our work has just gotten harder because we have to police them to make sure that they don't cheat. And there was definitely, I think initially on the part of many educators, a sense of, oh no, doom, our students are never going to learn. There's a risk of plagiarism. It's so much easier now for students to plagiarize, to cheat on their tests, to cheat on their exams. And that's going to result in a reduced quality of education. Let me grab this cat before she jumps on my desk. Sorry. That is going to lead to our students sort of losing their critical thinking skills or not gaining them in the first place. They won't be able to think independently because all they'll want to do in order to do their assignments will be push a button and assignment done. So, oh no, they're going to be lazy. There are, in fact, potential privacy risks for the students when they use, especially open source artificial intelligence applications. There's also a privacy risk for creators out there because, of course, the way these or many of these tools work is that they kind of mine the internet for information. So your work, your potentially copyrighted creative work could be, you know, sort of glommed up into this grand pool of information and sort of regurgitated in a student's essay at some point. So privacy on both sides of that coin can be potentially at risk. And I noticed certainly when discussing ChatGPT in particular, but AI tools in general with my colleagues, there was definitely sort of an us versus them kind of mood to the whole thing. Oh no, you know, the students are our enemies, we have to police them. And the students think we are we're their enemies because we're trying to catch them in the act of cheating. So it was sort of a negative at the beginning. And we learned a bunch of approaches to assignments that could potentially deter our students from relying on artificial intelligence. Again, ChatGPT is the key one, but not the only one. And there are a series of assignment types, particularly for those who are teaching language, who are teaching writing, that do, well, not necessarily altogether preventing the use of AI tools, certainly discourage the use of AI tools. And these are mainly the kinds of assignments where students have to come up with their own thoughts, essentially. So anything like a personal reflection, for example, where a student has to talk about their own thoughts, their own experiences, experiential journals, reflective journals, creative writing tasks, depending on the prompt, right? Students really are required to come up with their own material in cases like that. Predictions, future scenarios. Most AI applications are notoriously bad at that. They can only really talk about the past. Even if something is happening right now, most AI applications can't really deal with that, can't really come up with anything good to say about it. So any exercise where you ask students to kind of look into the future, to look forward, these can be good exercises. And any kind of critical review. Again, what a lot of these have in common is they're all asking for the students' opinions. And that's kind of the trick in terms of if you want to avoid AI tools being used by your students, these exercises tend to be useful in terms of making sure that your students are relying on their own voices and doing their own work, basically. It can, again, many times mean, yeah, maybe there's a little more work for the teacher. Not necessarily. It sort of depends on the way you kind of structure the exercises. But for the most part, if AI is what you want to avoid, that sort of exercise can be helpful. But if we kind of sit back and take a broader view, some of these tools are actually very interesting. Some of them are quite useful, and you can actually incorporate them into your teaching in such a way that your students are still going to be encouraged to think critically. They're not necessarily simply allowing your students to copy and paste and turn it in. You, again, have to kind of adjust, I suppose, your assignments a little bit so that students can use these tools, but are still asked to think about what they are doing, what the tools are doing, what the tools have produced, yeah, and how they can go from there, basically. So a couple of the benefits of AI tools, especially for those of us who are teaching foreign/second language courses, instant feedback. So I teach German courses. My students all have access to kind of online workbooks. So they do their homework online and they get instant feedback because it's all AI based. So they get the right answer. The application lets them know right away. Yay, that answer's right. They get the wrong answer. The application lets them know, no, that's not the right answer, but gives them another chance to try again. So some learning is going on, and hey, it's less work for me because I don't have to do all those corrections now. I have a web-based application that's doing that for me. That's great. That leaves more time for me to do more important, well, not more important, but other different work with my students in the classroom. We have more time to do more creative work, more interactive work. We can work with more authentic materials. They're learning the language, they're learning the grammar, but they're able to take it and use it much faster this way. Because, well, essentially they get more learning done in a shorter period of time. And then again, there's this availability, there's this constant availability. And we've always said that about anything web-based, essentially, you know, unless the power goes out or something strange happens, students can access these materials whenever they want. That's been great for our students because a lot of them are working full-time. So they're only available in the evenings, for example, to do this sort of thing. So they've got kind of a quote unquote teacher available to them at all times during the day or night. And these tools do, as I'm going to kind of illustrate a little bit, they encourage a new kind of creativity, both on the part of the teachers and on the part of the students. Everybody gets a chance to kind of play around a bit. And I think, again, I'll kind of go back to the dawn of the internet when we were just starting to use internet applications in our teaching. They encouraged us to play a little bit, to be creative, to say, yeah, look, here's this neat web-based thing. And we can use it for teaching languages. We've got these, let's say, here's some lovely, let's go way back, some JavaScript-based exercises. And these are fun. We can make our own exercises. And, you know, it's great. And we can play with how we use them in our classroom. These applications are more sophisticated, obviously, but they kind of encourage us to do the same thing. And so that's kind of what I encourage educators to do as well. Don't say, oh no, ChatGPT or AI, it's the enemy. No, it doesn't have to be the enemy. You just want to kind of make it your friend. Make it your friend. Get it. You can get it into your teaching in a different way. So it can support your teaching, right? It doesn't have to be something that you avoid altogether. So this list on this slide shows the top AI tools for students. And when I say top, favorite tools of students, but also some really good ones. And not just for students, quite honestly, these can be very useful for educators as well. They can actually make your work a little easier in certain aspects. ChatGPT, obviously, that's the big one. You log in, you type a question, or you type in some instructions. It's a trainable kind of AI. You essentially tell it what you want, and it will produce it. Now, that's terrific. But I would caution, and I do caution my students when using this sort of tool, don't just ask your question and then say, yay, that's it. That's all I need to do. Here's my answer, and I'm going to turn this in. That seldom works out very well. It's not a perfect science, and that's good. It means students are still going to have to read. They're still going to have to analyze what these applications produce. And it gives them an opportunity actually to think critically about what information they've been given. For languages, it's great because it gives students a chance to kind of improve their writing by looking at different examples of how to say something in the language they're studying. So I use some of these tools quite a bit with my translation students, for example. Tutor AI is a good one in that a student can type in a question and the application produces a series of modules. So it's a great study aid. You know, if I'm learning for my physics exam or something, I can ask a question and the tutor AI will provide for me a series of lessons, basically, including quizzes. That's great. Students can really get a leg up on studies that way. Teachers can use it too. Teachers can use it to kind of formulate test questions as well. So that's quite useful. Explain it like I'm 5 that's what this picture is here. Is just kind of fun. It's very much like Tutor AI. It simply provides a simple explanation of whatever the topic is. And again, what I like about this one is that you can kind of adjust the level of language, I guess, that is being used. So I think on this one, it says, I'm feeling pretty dumb. That means, okay, I'm going to get a very simple explanation of whatever it is I'm asking about in this case. I can say I'm feeling pretty smart, and then it'll give me a more detailed explanation. And again, you know, great for students, great for teachers too, potentially. It could be useful in writing up notes for a lesson that you're working on, something along those lines. Again, not something I would really caution my students if they were using this. Don't just copy and paste it. It's not, again, it's not going to be perfect. You're going to need to, again, go in, think critically about what you see, make adjustments. Not everything is going to be what you want to say. Not everything is going to answer the question your teacher may have asked you. This is really a study aid. And I wouldn't probably use it for much more than that, either one of these. Just, they give you the information, they break it down. Really helpful though, if you're working on a topic and you just don't get it, this can help to kind of break it down. That's helpful for your students. That can save a lot of time and a lot of frustration on their part too. Scholarly, the last one, honestly, I really like, and I'm going to I'm going to put together at least one assignment for my translation students using that application. Essentially, it's a research aid. It kind of annotates articles. It breaks down articles and pulls out the important points. It can help a researcher, a student, teacher to put together a source list for an upcoming research project, for example. And that's how I plan to have my students use it in my translation course. So they'll be using it to explore sources for a research paper that they need to write. Really helpful. Very good time saver. Again, you still have to read the article. It gives you a breakdown that's very helpful. it can save you time in terms of, oh, that article is not what I need for this project. So you maybe don't read the whole article before you figure out, oh, I don't want that. But you still have to read the article if you want to put together a decent research project. It's just helpful in compiling that information. So I think, you know, from a certain perspective, these are good tools. These are useful tools. So what can I do? As I say, I'm using one for the resource list, the Scholar-C. You could use these to draft an outline. Still have to write the paper, but you could explore a topic and say, I'm going to write about copyright rules in translation studies, something like that. I could plug in that question, you know, and this AI application, ChatGPT, whatever I'm using, could kind of give me a list of the pertinent topics. That could be useful. I could explore those topics and use those topics to help me draft an outline of a paper. Potentially useful. It's not writing the paper for you. It's just helping you get started, right? For the language learners, you could write a chatbot script. It's very similar to just a sort of opening conversation. Hello, how are you? I'm fine. Where are you from? That sort of thing. Only you're writing it for a chatbot, right? So the chatbot is going to be doing the answering. You can work with chatbots in other languages as well, same thing. Again, for translation with the CAT tools, computer-assisted translation tools, I have a favorite that I love to use with my students. It's probably pretty small here, but Linguae, so much fun for my translation students because this really helps to perfect their writing. You type in a phrase. I don't know how to say this in French, for example. It's maybe it's some bureaucratic language. I don't know how to say this in French, or German or Italian or whatever language you're working with. And Linguae is going to comb the web and provide you with those elements or that specific phrase that you're trying to translate and how it's been translated in various other documents that it has found online. And that is so helpful. That is so helpful for students because they can see, well, that's not saying quite exactly what I want to say, but this one's very close. The phrasing used here is perfect. So it can really help students to fine-tune their writing. And that's what my translation students are doing. They're coming up with better ways to say something in the target language. This has been such a help to them. So again, you know, these tools, there can be extremely, extremely useful when you can use them to your advantage. When you use them to your advantage, they're extremely useful. You don't have to be afraid of them. I think your students are still going to do very well. The other good thing about teaching your students how to use these as helpers in your classes, helpers with their studies, is that if you teach them now how to use them correctly, you potentially avoid them using them incorrectly / dishonestly, potentially in the future, right? So just like with the dawn of the internet, we taught students how to use the internet effectively, how to recognize what's a good page, what's not a great page, what's a reliable source, what's not a reliable source. We can do the same thing with these tools too. And really, instead of you looking at them as potential problems, potential hindrances to education, we can look at them as really potential helpers to education. So I would encourage people to take a look at them. If you know your students are using some of these tools, rather than sort of saying, no, don't use them, think about ways in which you could have the students use them partially as a helper, not as a way to cheat, but as a way to be inspired instead. Okay. And I think I will leave you with that.
Excuse me, Prof.
Yeah.
You have 5 minutes left.
Oh, I do. Okay, good. I thought, oh, I'll wrap it up. So yeah, I think in a nutshell, that's it. I can stop my 5 minutes early. Just keep an eye. These tools are being developed really quickly. One does need to be careful. I know that, they can be used in the wrong way, depending on, what students are up to, what people are up to with them, but they can be helpful. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of them. Have a look at them, play around with them. I think you'll find that you can, again, adjust. You can be creative with the way you teach by incorporating a few of these tools into your own curricula, into your teaching programs. Okay. And there, we will stop there, and then you have plenty of time for questions.
Well, what a wonderful presentation, Prof. Jasmine. Thank you very much for giving us such informative and valuable, interesting presentation, especially relating to the digital tools, that fits to education, especially for language education. Well, so ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the questions and answers session. As I already wrote in the chat rooms, if you would like to deliver your questions directly to Prof. Jasmine, so you can use the facilities of raise hands, or you may write in the chat box of your question. So please let me know if you would like to ask question, or you may write on the chat box. Okay, so while waiting for other participants to ask their questions, we have one question here. Interesting and informative presentation, Prof, said by Dr. Marcus Deli. His question, would you please to elaborate the potential usefulness of AI tools in English skills improvement? Okay, so while waiting for other participants to ask questions, so I give opportunity for Prof. Jasmine to answer these first questions.
So I think many of these tools are really quite useful for writing. So again, I use a lot of them for translation, for teaching translation. But if we go back, for example, to say ChatGPT and look at how we can use that to help students formulate their questions, formulate their thoughts, it can be quite useful just in terms of, outlining what I might want to write about. Lingua, for example, depending on what you're using it for, can help students to, again, fine-tune their writing. I'm trying to go back to my slide here so that I can go back and let's see if it'll let me go back a little bit. There we go. So if you were using ChatGPT, again, ChatGPT can write a little essay for you, right? It is, again, it's not perfect. So a student, for example, could type in, write 5 sentences about the weather or something like that. ChatGPT will spit out these 5 sentences. They won't necessarily be gorgeous, but you could say, write 5 sentences about the weather in formal English. Then you're going to get 5 sentences about the weather written in a formal tone. You could ask ChatGPT to write 5 sentences about XYZ and have those sentences contain errors. This is something that you as the instructor could then potentially use to help your students to improve their writing, right? You could use something like Tutor AI or the Explain It Like I'm 5. One of those applications could help to explain grammar points. Perhaps there's something that students are having a hard time getting their head around, or perhaps there's something that it's difficult for the teacher to explain. You could ask one of these, or the students could ask one of these applications to explain it. What are the comma rules for, or just what are comma rules, basically? Something like that. I always have a hard time thinking of examples off the top of my head, but anything like that, they can be helpful. I do like the idea of using something like ChatGPT simply to kind of outline a writing project, or to provide a writing prompt even. So if you're doing creative writing and you're leaving it up to the students to come up with their own prompt, maybe they could use something like ChatGPT. Give me a writing prompt for a short story on space travel or something like that. Or you come up with the writing prompt and ChatGPT could come up with a couple potential topics. Again, you don't want ChatGPT to write the actual story. That's not going to work out. And you as a teacher would recognize right away, I think, if your students were trying to get away with that. But again, they can guide, they can provide a little, I'm going to say a little boost to help the students get started. So there are several things that you could do from that point of view, just to, help your students figure something out, help them to explain something. It all sort of depends on what kind of English writing your students are doing. So if they're doing formal research, again, you could go ahead and outline, you could go ahead and send them out with Scholarly or something like that to come up with some sources for their writing. It all kind of depends. But if you do a little searching online for these AI tools, you'll find, boy, there are a lot of them, and many of them can help your students to improve their writing in English or in any language, really. I hope that helps.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Jessamine and Pa Marcus Deli. I hope it answered your question. Well, so the second question, is there any question from the participant? Okay, so while waiting for other participants to ask question, I have one question, Prof. So currently Indonesia is promoting independent learning. So we have, we called a new curriculum as independent curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
So what about your opinion about how the language teacher encourage the students encourage the students to be independent learner by using AI tools? Yeah, as you explained that maybe most of the writing assignment is discourage the reliance on AI. But here I'm going to ask you how you relate with how to encourage students' independent learning through AI tools? Thank you.
I think you know, they're quite useful for something like that. And I know actually I didn't include it in the first slide, but one of the concerns that teachers had expressed at the outset of the conversation about AI tools was that, oh no, AI is going to take our jobs, right? Students won't need us at all anymore because these tools will take care of everything. Of course, that's highly unlikely. But I think that they can be potentially very useful in terms of encouraging independent learning. In particular, if I think about the tutor AI program that I mentioned before, that is really good at sort of setting things up so that students aren't designing their own curricula necessarily, but it encourages students to explore. So to go deeper and into a topic. So for example, if I am studying a certain novel, maybe we're working with a particular novel in one of my classes, and the novel is set in, I'll say, 18th century France or something like that. We in the class might not necessarily have a whole lot of time to talk about the historical background of the novel. We're going to talk about it a little bit, but students who are particularly interested in that, or who have additional questions that we don't have time to discuss in class, can go, I mean, obviously they can always go online to look things up and delve a little deeper, but this AI, Tutor AI, is quite useful in that it really encourages that further exploration. So I might have a question about, you know, what was the political situation in France in 1750. I think I said 18th century France. So 1750. And it'll give me some background information. It'll provide me with some other areas of research, so some other topics I might want to look at, related topics, but it'll also invite me to go deeper into a question. So it'll give me my little modules. I think it'll produce 5 little modules, so 5 little lessons about the historical situation in France in 1750. And for each of those modules, it'll let me take a little quiz. It'll let me ask a series of additional questions. It'll sort of point me to some additional information that is related. So it encourages students to look into things on their own. So to take a topic that maybe they heard about in class, to take a topic that is related even remotely to something that they were looking at in class, and explore it with a little more detail. So I could use this, for example, for something like that. Might use it, I'm having a terrible time in my math class, so maybe I'll ask it to help me figure out how to solve an equation. These are certainly obviously not the only tools out there that help with that sort of thing, but it's interesting the way they can connect, you know, various other sources, various places to look for additional information. And even with the Scholarcy, with the sources that it will list for you, that's great. Again, it tells you what's in an article. Okay, maybe that's not what I was looking for, but actually that sounds very interesting. So I'm going to read that anyway. And again, you know, you can find yourself, if you're anything like me, off on a tangent because of something like that, because I'm easily distracted, and you know, this is an interesting topic, I'm going to go look at this a little bit. But It does, from that point of view, definitely encourage independent learning. It encourages students to explore in a little more detail. Yeah. What else is going on here? We only have so much time to talk to our students in class. The reading materials we use in class may or may not cover everything that the students want to know. And if students want to know more, hooray, that's fantastic. It's great that they have tools available to them that will help them to get that extra information.
Well, thank you, Jasmine. Okay, so I give one more opportunity for participants to ask question. Okay, let me directly to students who already or always use the AI tools in doing your assignment or something like that. Maybe you would like to share your experience. And I will give a special gift if you ask question. That's a way to encourage them to ask question.
Yes, and I would be very interested to know how they're using AI tools.
Yes. How about their experience? Personally, I just trying to use AI ChatGPT. It really helps me.
It can be very useful.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions, students? Ada yang mau bertanya? Nanti dapat 100.000 dari saya. 100,000. Kalau ada yang siap bertanya. Okay. Adakah mahasiswa yang ingin bertanya? Satu kesempatan lagi, 100.000. Ini untuk mahasiswa. Please raise your hand. Ada? No? 100.000.
Don't have to be afraid if you are using AI tools. It's a good thing in this case.
Ada? Tidak ada? Mahasiswa yang berani? Prof. Jasmine is from Northern Illinois University, and I've been there. Maybe we met for 2 times, but not personally.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Ada yang ingin bertanya? Mahasiswa 1? Tidak ada? Tidak ada yang mau lewat 100.000? Well, so maybe they're too shy and because they have to ask question to the native speaker, but actually this is a really wonderful time if you would like to ask question to the native speaker, yeah? This is a wonderful opportunity because even though AI also can be like a native speaker when we ask questions or practice our skills, especially speaking, but this is a directly lively question if you would like to ask question.
Definitely.
No?
I'd also be curious. I'm curious how if the teachers in the group are using AI tools and which ones you're using and how you're using them.
Yeah, maybe most of us are just trying and learning how to use these AI tools in our and we try to use it well and appropriately in our curricula. Yeah, yes. So that's why this webinar is trying to how to strengthening the literacy skills because lots of people are not familiar with the technology, with the AI.
Right.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, so I think maybe no more questions from the floor. So we have already had 2 questions, yeah? So we finally come to the end of these sessions, but before I close the session, I would like to take the conclusion from what the speaker has presented. So the first, AI is not an enemy. Yeah, but we can make it a friend because it can support our teaching and learning. And there are types of assignment that discourage reliance of AI, like personal reflection, what else? Experiential learning journals, creative writing, because students will just click the tools to make a writing assignment, and also predictions and future scenarios. But as ChatGPT always write in this application that only 2021, the information that can be explained to us. So the next, but there are top tools for students like ChatGPT, Tutor AI, and etc. Also, there are some tools that can be used for language education. So teachers are encouraged to use the AI tools and part of educational landscape. And teacher can teach students to use these tools and use these tools well and appropriate by including them in the course curricula. So I would like to thank our first keynote speaker, Professor Jasmine Cook-Blagwitz, for the very informative and interesting presentations, and also for all the participants for their participation. So finally, please give a rounded applause for our first keynote speaker, Professor Jasmine Cook-Blagwitz. And thank you very much for all your attentions. So I hand it back this floor to the Master of Ceremony, Ms. Silvani.
Wow, great. Thank you, Prof. Jasmine and Dr. Selvi Panggua. Okay, ladies and gentlemen and all participants, we will enter to the second presentation.
Excuse me, before we go for the next presentation, maybe we have to have a photo session with Professor Jasmine.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Please stand by, Professor Jasmine. Okay, Miss Renzi, please take a picture, please, before Prof. Jasmine leave our room. Or maybe you will stay with us. Yeah.
I'll stay a little while.
Okay. Yeah. Apakah sudah ada yang ambil foto? Oh.
Boleh Bu Silvani saja dulu.
Ya, boleh Bu Silvani ambil foto, silakan.
Okay.
Prof. Jasmine mungkin bisa disorot.
Keep smile and please turn on your camera. Wow, Dr. Umi, Mr. James Cohen is in the floor.
Hi.
Keep smile. Wow, Mr. Charlie have a nice smile. But I think just a photo. Okay, I think that's all for photo session. Thank you for Prof. Jasmine and Dr. Selvi. Okay, we will enter to the second presentation and will be delivered by our great keynote speaker.
Ibu Stefani, before starting to the next session, so I'd like to say hello to my great mentor, Professor James Cohen. Hi. How are you?
So nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, welcome.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Umi. Okay, good morning, Mr. James Cohen from Toraja. And our moderator for the second presentation is Dr. Roni Labiran. MPD, time is yours.
So should I start then?
Excuse me. Right. Thank you very much for times given to me as a moderator for this session here. Right. Before Professor James Cohen, PhD, will present his presentation, I try to explain about the identity of James Cohen. Right. James Cohen is a lecturer from Northern Illinois University as the associate professor of ESL Bilingual Education, Department of Curriculum and Interaction. His research interests lie in the areas of bilingual and ESL education, literacy and interaction of immigrant and a non-native speaker, a non-parallel school immigrant student, and undocumented immigrant. And he has so many publications, such as books, reference, article, book chapter, and etc. So Professor James Cohen will present his presentation, namely perspective understanding our students so they can learn better. Professor Cohen, time to present your presentation. To present your presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. And thank you everyone for inviting me to present today. Should I share my screen or is that okay?
Yeah, you can try to set screen by yourself, please.
Okay, very good. Let's see here. Okay, can you all see it?
Yes, it's okay.
Great. Okay, so slideshow, let me start. Oh, I think you were seeing the wrong screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah, now do you see the correct screen?
Yeah,
you don't see my notes, right?
Yeah.
No, okay. Very good. Okay, so what I'm going to talk today about is the idea of perspectives. And for the last, I don't know, maybe 15 years or so, close to 20 years, I've been really, really interested in this notion of perspectives. Why are perspectives so important? And so I titled today's presentation, Perspectives, Understanding Our Students so they can learn better. Very straightforward. All right, let's start here. So last May, a year ago May, I had the opportunity to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, East Africa. And when the third morning, it was a 5.5 days up and a day and a half down. And as the second day was a very long day of hiking. And the third morning, we wake up and we were above the clouds. Now, I don't know if you know anything about Chicagoland area, where Jessamine and I live in DeKalb, Illinois. It's very flat. There are no mountains. And whenever we see clouds, the clouds are always above us. The clouds are never below us. So the entire time I was climbing this mountain, Mount Kilimanjaro, I was experiencing a major sense of disequilibrium. Like my mind, how I was viewing the world was just all messed up, because the only time that a person from Chicago sees clouds below them is when they are in an airplane, not when they're on the land, right? So this created a tremendous amount of disequilibrium for me. And I thought this was important to start the presentation off with, because our perspectives on the world, our perspectives on everything around us, plays a major role in how we live our lives and how we interact with people. So on those lines, I want to ask some questions. And I want you to really, after each question, I want you to think about the question for a good 4 or 5 seconds. I will pause, and I want you to think about these questions, and then we'll move on. So the first question, how are you creating relationships with your students? Or what barriers keep you from cultivating relationships with your students? So in a few moments, I want you to think about that. Are you viewing your students as capable learners? How and what do you learn from your students? How do you try to understand your students' perspectives? So, why am I starting off this presentation with these questions? It's because questions unearth unconsidered perspectives. Questions allow us to think about perspectives that we don't normally think about or we haven't thought about in the past. So here's a picture. So, wait. Oh, I'm not there yet. I'm sorry. So, yeah. So let's talk about perspectives as a whole. What are perspectives? Your perspective is the way you see something, right? It's a particular way of thinking about something, especially one that is influenced by your own beliefs or experiences. Perspectives has the root, the Latin root of look through or perceive. So it's anything regarding perspective has something to do with the actual, the act of looking. All right, so here we have a picture. It's a very calm, serene, tranquil river, right? It looks safe, no issues at the first glance. You know, it's very calm. You think, okay, I would like to swim in this river maybe, or, you know, it's safe. That's one perspective. Now, if you look a little bit more closely, you can see that there is a caiman crocodile swimming nearby. So now you had the first perspective of this river as being calm, safe, serene. And now you see this caiman crocodile because you're looking a little bit more closely. But now, if you go down a few hundred yards away, a few hundred meters away, you realize that you are about to go over a waterfall. And this waterfall is called Iguazu Falls. It's one of the largest waterfalls in the world, and it's on the border of Brazil and Argentina in South America. So here we have three perspectives, right, on this same river. Different experiences, different perspectives, same river. And now look at the fourth perspective. We have a different vantage point. We're looking at the whole waterfall from afar. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. But in order to understand the river, you have to understand the river from all four perspectives, right? You understand the river from the calm on top of the river. You need to understand the river as with animals living in it, potentially dangerous. You have to see the waterfall from on top and from afar. Only from all four experiences, only from all four vantage points can you get a full picture of this river and to formulate your perspective on the river. What influences our perspectives? Our past experiences. You know, if I have bad experiences in math class, I'm not going to enjoy math in the future. If I had bad experiences in my English grammar class, I'm not going to enjoy doing grammar in the future. Our knowledge of the world. How does our knowledge of the world influence our perspective? How we view the world is absolutely influenced by what knowledge we have of the world. Our cultures, societies within which we live. When I was in Indonesia over the summer, I was on the island of Java in the town of Solo and Yogyakarta. When I was there, lots of women were covering their head, right, with the hijab. But in the United States, we don't have that very much. So how we view our surroundings is heavily influenced by our culture and our society in which we're living. Our identities also influence our perspectives. Our sex, male or female, sexual orientation, race, age, religion, all of these influence our perspectives. Also, our positionalities influence our perspectives. I'm a professor. How I view the world is oftentimes from a professor's lens. I'm also a man, a white man, a straight man, a father, a husband, a son, a brother. All these positionalities influence how I view the world. Our biases, both implicit and explicit, influences our perspectives, as well as the concept of individualistic versus collectivist societies. That also influences our perspectives. For example, last summer when I was in Solo, I asked why COVID is not that big of a deal anymore, but the people working in stores were frequently wearing masks still. And I said to my friend Dwi, why are they wearing a mask? Are they afraid of getting COVID? And he says, no. They're protecting their customers. The whole perspective, it was so flipped. I was looking at it from an individualistic perspective, and he was looking at it as, no, I'm protecting others. It's beautiful. So we are actually, human beings are judgment machines. We are absolute judgment machines. We were born, think of it like this. We're all born with a little cup, an empty cup in our heads. And this empty cup, as we live our lives, gets filled up with experiences and knowledge. And sometimes it's good knowledge, meaning, I love everybody. Sometimes it's bad knowledge, meaning I don't like people who look like that, and I don't like people who look like that, So those biases are influenced heavily by what's being put into this cup. And once we realize that this cup is being filled up all the time, then we can start realizing, okay, I need to be thinking about my perspectives, especially when it comes to students. So if anyone has heard me speak before, I always talk about this concept called replace judgment with curiosity. When I was getting my doctorate, one of my professors was having a student in one of our classes was acting up. He was behaving disrespectfully in my mind. And I asked the professor, why didn't you stop him from acting like that? And she said, I really wanted to understand where he was coming from. So I really tried to replace judgment with curiosity. So one day, that was a big light bulb in my head that went off. And so one day, many, many years later, I was presenting at a conference at a university in Chicago. And all the people in the audience were Chicago public school teachers. And I just told them about this concept of replace judgment with curiosity. And one of the students, or one of the teachers, raises her hand and says, Dr. Cohen, can I tell a story? I said, absolutely. So she says, I'm a high school English teacher. And for 2 weeks, there was a student who was coming late to class every day. She wasn't doing her homework anymore for those 2 weeks. And she was really, really disengaged. She wasn't paying attention in class. So after 2 weeks, during these 2 weeks, she was getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And after the 2 weeks was up, she says, and she starts doing this with her hand, slapping her one hand to the other hand. And she says, Monday morning, I was so angry, I was going to lay it into her. I was going to yell at her. So Monday morning comes by. This is 2 weeks, right? Monday morning comes by, and the student walks into the classroom. The teacher walks right over to the student and starts pointing her finger. You've been late for 2 weeks. You haven't been doing your homework. You haven't been engaged in classroom activities. I've had it up to here. No more. And the student put her hands up in the air like a police officer was pointing a gun at her. And she says, I'm sorry, miss, I won't be late anymore. I just want to let you know that my mom was in the hospital for the past 2 weeks. And I had to get my brother and sister ready, get them dressed and get them breakfast and get them ready for school. I also want to let you know that my mom died on Saturday. So the teacher felt awful. The teacher started crying. She hugged the student, apologized to the student. And here's this teacher. I asked her, why were you judging your student like that? And she says, she's a good kid. I thought she was just falling through the cracks. And and she thought that she was going to become another statistic, getting pregnant and dropping out of school. So what happened was the teacher, all she had to do was go up to the student and say, is everything okay? All she had to do was ask her in those 2 weeks, instead of getting angry and judging, all she really had to do was go up to her and say, is everything okay? Do you want to talk outside in the hallway? But no, she judged instead. And where did it make her? Where did it get her? It created a tremendous amount of anger in the teacher. And it insulted the student, and it made the student feel really bad. And yet the student was doing everything she could to be the best human being she could be. So how do we replace judgment? Well, the first thing we have to do is to start realizing that everything that we think we know is still somewhat limited. There are many different ways to view something, so we should start to realize that a different perspective might shine a new light on something. If this teacher had looked at the student and said, "Is everything okay?" she would have learned a different perspective, right? Also, second, we should always strive to get as much information as possible before forming concrete opinions. Reading one book, as an example, about something isn't enough. If we truly want to better understand this particular subject matter, then we need to explore numerous and often contradictory viewpoints to get a much clearer understanding of the whole picture. Remember the pictures of the 4 pictures of the river. The waterfall was very dangerous, but a few hundred meters up the river, it was very calm and serene. Contradiction. Same river, but different, contradicting pictures. You have to get the whole river, understand the whole river in order to understand, or you have to see the 4 different perspectives in order to fully understand the river. So when it comes to understanding your students, I want to ask you some more questions. Do you ever listen to your students' perspectives? What do you do when students tell you their opinions? Are you threatened by those opinions? Do you welcome those opinions? Do you engage the students when they give you their opinions? How often do we allow students to give us their opinions? Is learning just one way? Is it just from teacher to student? Or can we teachers learn from our students? I obviously believe that I learn more from my students than my students learn from me every semester. Why is it important to know our students? Knowing our students allows us to understand when they are ready to learn or if they're not ready to learn. How many times do kids come into our classrooms? The students come into our classrooms and their minds are off somewhere else. Something bad happened at home or something great happened at home. Something's frustrating them. Maybe they got a flat tire on their bicycle or on their motorbike and they had to walk or push their car or push their motorbike to class. So they're sweaty and they're hot and they're thirsty and they're not ready to learn. They're angry. They're frustrated. When that affective filter is up, that wall is up, nobody can learn. So knowing our students allows us to understand when a student is ready or not ready to learn. Also, you will understand their needs. We all have strengths and we all have weaknesses. We all have areas that need to improve on, that we can improve on. And we all have areas that we are really strong on, but still can improve on. Knowing your students allows you to know what your students' strengths and areas of improvement are. And that's really, really important for us to know that. I once observed a teacher. I took a group of students to Taiwan many, many years ago. And I'll never forget this. The students were really, they were upper elementary. upper primary, so like 5th or 6th grade. And she was teaching them the English alphabet. Letter A, letter B, letter C. And she was spending like a half an hour on each letter type thing. It was awful. These kids did not need that. These students already knew the alphabet. They already knew how to read and write in English. But because she didn't try to learn the students, try to understand and know who the students were, she automatically assumed the students knew nothing about English. When you understand your students and you know your students, you will be able to build on what they already know. So if this teacher knew that these kids already knew how to read and write in English and speak and listen in English, then what she should have done was talk with them first, gauge their level of English ability, and then move on from there. But what she did was she automatically assumed they knew nothing about English. And here's a big concept too. You will be able to engage them as human beings, not just as students. I have a really good friend of mine. His name is JQ. And JQ always talks about, he's retired, he's a retired professor. And he's about 15, 20 years older than I am. And he always talks about, we need to treat each other as human beings, not as students, not as professors, not as husbands or wives, but as humans. And the implications to this are profound, right? I mean, one experience that I do have in Indonesia that is, for me, sincerely one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen is at the school that I go to when I bring pre-service teachers to Solo, to this school called SMA Pradita Dirgantara. And my students teach their high school kids for 3 weeks. And so the last summer and this summer that just ended is ending. I brought 15 students the first summer and 10 students this last time. And what I noticed was the teachers and the students at that school do treat each other as human beings. The students are allowed to be themselves. It was so beautiful. They sing, they dance, they act, they perform. It's just gorgeous. So when you create a culture in your school where the students can be themselves, be human, it really makes a huge difference. So what can you do? What can you do to know your students more? And mind you, all of these things that I've listed on this page would help them with their English as well. One thing you could do is ask them questions about their background. Small talk, small conversations. What did you do this weekend? Oh, I went to I went to Makassar. Oh, what did you do in Makassar? I went to the fish market and I bought a bunch of fish. Oh, okay. What kind of fish do you like? Now you know that this student likes a certain kind of fish. You make connections with them. In the small talk, if a student says he likes to play football, oh, I love football too. How often do you play? Do you practice a lot? Are you on a team? Are you in a club? You make those connections. It's so important for all of us to be making connections with our students. Now, you're doing this in English. So you're getting to know your students, and they're practicing, you and they are both practicing their English. Have them write about their experiences. You know, writing, the act of writing creates more synapses in the brain, more connections. And so it moves things in the brain differently than just speaking. So when you have them write about their experiences, it makes their perspectives, their thoughts, their ideas, their opinions more concrete. And they are better able to articulate what they're thinking by first writing it down. Have them do a dialogue journal with you or with somebody else. A dialogue journal is essentially a conversation on paper. And how it works is very straightforward. You give a prompt the very first day. The student writes the answers, like, what did you do over summer vacation? All right, so they write down their responses, and then you read them and you respond. You're not looking for grammar, you're not looking for punctuation, spelling, nothing. You're just looking for communication. And I'll tell you, I lived in Sri Lanka for 2 years, 2.5 years almost, many, many years ago. And I did dialogue journals with my students who were all adults studying English. I had 120 students, and I did dialogue journals with every one of my students. And every night, I would sit on my bed and I'd have a stack of dialogue journals on one end, and then all the ones that I've read over here. And at the beginning of the night, I would take the top one, I'd read, and then write my responses. I would ask questions. I would say, oh yeah, I did that too, or I love that. And I made connections with the students in these journals. And then eventually the number that I read started going down, and the number finished was over here. I learned so much about my students, and their English improved tremendously. And I was able to make connections and bond with my students. In my classrooms, I never lecture. I've been talking now for about a half an hour. How often has your brain gone off somewhere else? You can't focus on someone talking for a half an hour. Your brain leaves and then comes back, leaves, comes back, leaves, comes back. So I structure all of my classes by discussion, not by lecture.
Excuse me, Professor, your time is 5 minutes to go.
Thank you. And so it makes a much more engaging learning environment if you provide a discussion-based classroom instead of a lecture-based. And obviously, you need to learn your students' names. If you don't know your students' names, that's one of the first things you should do. And then lastly, there's something called a family interview assignment, where you can have your students who are learning English go to their own families, interview them, whether it's in Indonesian or the local language or whatever, and then write the answers in English, and then present that or write up a report for you, the teacher. These are all examples of improving their English and getting to know them better. When you get to know your students better, your perspective on them changes. And that's what we want. By knowing who our students are, we can teach them much better, much more productively, much more effectively. And that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Cohen. Your presentation is really nice, how to understand our students so they can learn better. Right, this is a question. If you have a question, all the participants, I invite you to give a question, and we're going to try to discuss with the Professor Cohen with the topic, understand our students so they can learn better. Okay, time is yours. You're going to try to raise your hands and tell us your question. Okay, any question?
Looks like there's a question here. Angela?
Yeah. Okay, for all the participants in the conference, if you have a question, please be given a time to give your question. While we wait another student.
No, there's a question here.
All right. Oh, yeah.
Angela.
Okay. Yeah, that's where is it? Okay, time is yours. With this.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Thank you, Mr. for the time.
Okay, time is yours.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. That was a great presentation from Professor. We got so much enlightenment for teaching our students better in the classroom. My question, Prof, having different background of our students in Indonesia, some students are really good at speaking English and some students are very lack of English. And knowing them, we need, especially in teaching English, Prof, especially in the classroom, Prof. I'm teaching like young learners and young adult students. And then when we want to teach them, they got limited English to talk with, Prof. So how can we deal with that situation, Prof? That we want to try to get closer to our students, but again, they got limited with the language. And then second question, Prof, about replacing judgment with curiosity. I got the experience last meeting teaching last young learner. She didn't say much, Prof. Even I tried to talk with her in Bahasa Indonesia, in our local language, but she didn't produce anything. My heart was like, oh, come on, please stop, please say something. But nah, she didn't produce any word at all, Prof. So how can I try with the students like that, Prof? Thank you very much, Prof. and Mr. Ronnie.
All right, thank you, Angel. Time is yours, Prof, to answer the question.
Yeah, great question. So the first one, actually, both questions can be answered by one answer. If you provide, a few different things can happen. One, if you provide more structure in how you're having them respond. So for example, if you want them, so let's say I'm reading a picture book and the students are listening to the picture book in English, right? And then I can write a question on the board saying, I want you to make a text to self connection. Let's say that, right? So they need, when you're done reading the book, they need to make a connection, writing down on their piece of paper. And then they turn to their neighbor and they read that connection that they made with the story that you read with their neighbor. And then they share it with them. And then you have them share that with one or two other people. Now you could say, okay, students, what connections did you make? because they practiced 2 or 3 times, they will be more apt to share in the whole class. Another answer, that's one example, one solution. Another solution is to do what's called sentence starters, where you say, I like, and then you have a line and they have to fill in, or I don't like, and then they fill in the end of the sentence. Sentence completers, these kinds of things. So they're completing a sentence. You can make it more complicated too if their English is better. Like, I like this, comma, but. So you put a line with the this and a but and a line at the end. So they get to fill in the words. These kinds of things give them, provide a tremendous amount of structure. And some students need more structure than other students. Because remember that affective filter, that wall that gets built up? The reason the student is not answering you in Indonesian or in English is because they're shy or they're nervous. So by providing a lot of structure in how they respond with either sentence starters, sentence completers, think, pair, share, which is think about the connection and then write it down and then share it out. So these are 3 different examples that you can do for your students to be more productive, to produce more in English and in Indonesian. Those are just 3 ideas.
Right. Thank you very much, Professor. I think this is really clear. All right. I invite any more for another participants. If you have a question, I give you time to ask a question. I need 1 more question or 2 questions. Time is yours, please. Right. Any else? Okay, I have a question to Professor, sir. How to understand for the naughty students, therefore they have a motivation to learn English. It means that the student spend the time for fun. They don't have any time, they don't have a plan to study. And yes, I think so. The time just for fun only. Do not care about how to learn and how to learn English. Therefore, they have a motivation. This is really hard, especially for the students who learn English as a foreign language. Time is yours, sir.
So you're asking how to motivate them?
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's a question that we have a problem in the United States with also, right? It's students everywhere in the world are oftentimes you have the very motivated and the very unmotivated. The easy answer to that is to make the content as relevant as possible, as meaningful to that individual as possible. I'll give you an example. I had a student many years ago who didn't like to read. In fact, he hated reading. So I took him to the library and I said, all right, what are you interested in? What topics are you interested in? He says, I'm really interested in boxing, you know, the sport boxing. And so I said, all right. So I asked the librarian, can you show us books on boxing? And so the librarian took us over to the section and there were several books on boxing. He looked at all the different books. He selected one of them. And I said, okay, you and I are going to read together every day for the next 2 weeks. Together. We're going to read together every day for the next 2 weeks. And that's what we did. He read for a half an hour. I read sitting next to him for a half an hour. When we were done after the 2 weeks, he said, I love reading. I actually wrote a paper on it. It was amazing. This kid, I mean, he became a reader because he saw the meaning. He learned the meaning of reading because he was interested in it. So if you make, it really comes down, it's pretty black and white. If the kid is interested, they're going to do it. So how do you make it relevant? How do you make learning English relevant? You could bring foreigners like me, you know, or Jessenian to your school and have us talk to your kids. And then the kids are like, well, I don't understand. Well, you need to study. That's how you learn how to understand. You make it relevant. And relevancy is really the answer in so many different ways.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor. Right. The last question. If you have any question, all the participants are invited to. Time is yours, please. Come on. All right. Okay. Any question? The last chance to give you opportunity to ask the question. Time is yours, please. All right. If not questioned, it means that this is the end of the presentation of Professor Cohen from NIU. So thank you very much, Professor James Cohen, for your presentation. For these times, these are really nice topics that perspective understanding our students so they can learn better. The teacher should know student needs in the learning process. The teacher should understand the strengths and the weakness and engage them as a human being. This is a really important one that we have to try to know that the student has to know as a human being, not just as a student. That's we have to try to give an underline this one that we have to engage them as a human being, not as a student. This is a nice presentation for today, Professor Kahans. So thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you. See you for the next conference for the next year. Hope so we can have opportunity to meet the one in offline session, Professor.
Well, you know, next summer I'm going back to Indonesia, to Java.
Wow.
So yeah, hopefully one of these days I'll make it out to all the way to Sulawesi.
Oh, right.
You're on the island of Sulawesi, right?
Yeah. If you have an opportunity, you can come in Toraja, Makassar.
Makassar, yeah.
Yeah, Makassar, Toraja.
Love to.
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor. So thank you. Thank you. See you, Professor.
Take care.
This is the end of our this presentation of Professor James Cohen. Back to MC. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ronnie and Professor James Cohen. Before we continue our next presentation, we have photo session with Professor James Cohen and lead by Miss Renzi or me. Keep smile. Okay. Okay, I think that's all. And before we enter to the third presentation, let's watch together the short video about profile of English Education Study Program of Toraja Christian University of Indonesia. Okay, well, we will enter to the third presentation from the third keynote speaker, and the moderator for this session is Miss Judith Ratu Tandiara, MPD. Time is
Okay.
yours, Miss.
Okay, thank you, Miss Fanny. Can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
Okay, is it clear?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, thank you so much for this great opportunity, and I'll be the moderator for these last sessions for today. And before starting, I'd like to remind to all the participants later our distinguished presenter, Pak Paulus Kuswandono, PhD. If you have any questions, you can write it on chat box. So when we have a time for question and answer session, so I can read it for you. And I'd like to invite Ibu Rensi to share the short profile of Pak Paulus. Pak Paulus, are you there, sir? Pak Paulus Kuswandono, are you there, Pak? Pak Met, is Pak Paulus already as co-host or host?
Not yet.
Oh,
Only a
okay.
moment. Yeah, a moment.
Okay. Mungkin
Enak,
maybe okay, so maybe we can replay the song or anything while waiting Pak Paulus. Thank you.
Okay, Miss Judith. Maybe maybe we can watch again the profile of Uki Toraja, Miss Rensi.
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Adik-adik, mari bergabung bersama program studi pendidikan bahasa Inggris, di mana prodi ini terbentuk pada bulan September tahun 1971 dan telah terakreditasi B. Adapun visi program studi pendidikan bahasa Inggris adalah menjadi program studi penghasil lulusan yang unggul dalam bidang pengajaran bahasa Inggris, menguasai keterampilan dasar dan elemen-elemen dalam bahasa Inggris, kreatif dan inovatif, serta berjiwa entrepreneur berlandaskan nilai-nilai Kristiani tahun 2030. Sedangkan profil lulusan program studi pendidikan bahasa Inggris menjadi guru bahasa Inggris, entrepreneur, dan pelaku dunia industri pariwisata. Untuk mencapai profil lulusan tersebut, program studi pendidikan bahasa Inggris menerapkan kurikulum yang mendukung program MBKM atau Merdeka Belajar Kampus Merdeka. Semester ini dilakukan program pertukaran pelajar baik dalam UKI Toraja maupun di luar UKI Toraja. Juga ada kegiatan lain yaitu magang, asistensi mengajar, dan kewirausahaan. Dalam mendukung proses pembelajaran program studi pendidikan bahasa Inggris, didukung oleh tenaga pendidik yang kompeten dan profesional, di mana jumlah dosen yang berkualifikasi doktor sebanyak 3 orang, sementara 9 orang melanjutkan studi S3 dan 7 orang berkualifikasi S2. Juga fasilitas di program studi pendidikan bahasa Inggris ada lab bahasa, lab micro teaching, perpustakaan induk dan perpustakaan prodi, serta bengkel sastra dan seni. Selain itu, untuk mengembangkan minat dan bakat mahasiswa, Prodi menyiapkan UKM atau unit kegiatan mahasiswa seperti UKM debat, UKM olahraga, UKM seni, dan UKM jurnalistik, serta UKM pramuka. Ayo bergabung dengan program studi pendidikan bahasa Inggris. Come and join us at English Education Study Program at UKI Toraja. Thank you.
Okay, well, Miss Rensi, maybe the next video is about profile of UKI Toraja. Oh, okay. Our great keynote speaker, Mr. Paulus Gus Wandono, PhD, is already.
Hello, good morning, Avia. How are you?
I'm great, sir.
Yeah,
Okay, Miss
greetings from
Judith.
Yogyakarta.
Okay, good morning. Good morning, sir. Okay, Miss Judith as our moderator for this session.
Okay,
Are
thank
you
you.
ready?
Yes, thank you, Miss Fanny. Pak Paulus, welcome back in the third webinar of English Education Study Program of UKI Toraja. What a great pleasure that you are always willing to get our invitation. Thank you so much, sir. To shorten the time, I'd like to give a brief introduction to all participants. Please, Ibu Rensi, to share the PPT. Miss Rensi. Or maybe I will. Oh yeah, I'm as a co-host, so I can try here. Okay, anyone, can you see my screen?
Yes, Miss.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, I'd like to introduce briefly Pak Paulus Gus Wandono, PhD, is an associate professor working at English Education Study Master Program, Sanata Dharma University, Yogyakarta. He completed his Master of Education in 2001 and PhD 2013 in Monash University, Australia. And his research area focused on reflective practice, teacher professional development, teacher identity, educational psychology, and pre-service teacher education. Also, he has book publications about professional and personal values at the Bornless problem-based learning for pre-service teachers, and also reflecting teachers' real-life stories problem-based learning for pre-service teachers. Next, because he has numerous of scientific publications, so if you are willing to contact him for his research area focus on reflective practice, teacher professional development and teacher identity, educational psychology, and pre-service teacher education. And for further information on this link, and also for Scopus author or sheet numbers, so you can check online to search his publications. And also he had community service activities. I will share to all participants, probably you need more information about it. Also, he has another position outside of Universitas Sanata Dharma. His role as the chairman of English Education Study Program Association in Indonesia from 2015 at present, and also the supervisor chairman of Van Deventer Mas Stichting Foundation in Indonesia, or YVDMI, from 2017 at present. What a great pleasure to be your moderator, Pak Paulus. And this is the end of for the brief introductions about yourself. And once again, I'd like to ask the participants, if you have any questions during Pak Paulus' presentation, you may write on the chat box. To Pak Paulus, time is yours for 30 minutes to present your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bu Judith. Sorry, I missed your words. How many? Sorry, how long? 30 minutes?
30.
Okay, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I have 13 minutes. Okay, anyway, sorry, because of the connection. All right, so good morning, everybody. Greeting from Jakarta, and thank you very much for Bu Judith for inviting me here, and also for really rewarding introduction and warm welcome to the study program. I am very honored to be around you here, although I cannot, be with you physically, but I do believe that it does not really reduce the meanings of our encounter, right? So see that, you know, there are so many students and also lecturers here. I can see how many, like 88. Yeah. Are they all students, or also teachers from junior high schools or senior high schools? Bu Judith?
Yes, sir. Yes. Some are
okay.
teachers from high school.
Teachers. Okay, so
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have already been introduced by Bu Judith, but just call me Kus, yeah, K-U-S, yeah. Actually, my real name given by my parents. Okay, Kus is my what is it? My name. Usually, people call me Kus. So I would like to share with you something to do with the differentiated instruction or differentiated learning today, because it's actually also related to autonomous learning, as you have already been introduced probably from the previous speakers. All right, so let me start with this one. Okay, this is my templates of presentation. So usually my presentations, the cover is like this. Okay, so if you have already seen me in some presentations, why is the cover always like this? Yeah, because this is my favorites. Okay, all right, so that's it. So I do hope that everybody can see this right now. Yeah, so the title of my presentation is differentiated learning or differentiated instruction. So I would like to focus on the psychological impacts. Okay, let me check the time first. Okay. The psychological impacts of the learners. How and why are differentiated learnings important for us as teachers and also as learners? Okay, so I would like to divide the structure of presentation here into at least 5 points here. Number one is the characteristic of humanistic education, because differentiated instruction is really related to humanistic education. How can we appreciate the existence of human beings, as including our students and children? Okay, and then number two is principles of differentiated or differentiated instruction. So I use interchangeably. Sometimes I use DL, differentiated learning, and sometimes I use differentiated instruction, but they are actually all the same. Yeah. Number three is psychological impacts, and psychological reasons is the next, and last one is the assessment concept, if I have time. So assessment concept is not obligatory or obligation in my presentation here, but if I do have some time left, then I will explain assessment concept because they are related. But at least I would like to explain A, B, C up to D. Yeah, E is actually just pick up if we do still have some. Okay. Right, now probably you have already been familiar with this guy, okay? Raj Raghunathan, PhD. He is from the University of Texas, and he has already introduced, as you probably have already seen from the Coursera online courses, that he opened a kind of a course. And then the names of the course is quite funny, unique, and interesting. So the name of the course is A Life of Happiness and Fulfillment. What a great title of the course, right? I do not think that, we do have this kind of course in Indonesia yet. Okay, I say yet, not yet. Probably in UKI Toraja, you can think of a similar topic, or you also have the similar topic like this course, A Life of Happiness and Fulfillment. So this course is like talking about the science of happiness. How can we people reach happiness, as well as how can we teach happiness to other people? Because it's actually one of our goals, to be happy, okay? Not to be rich, not to be, having, great high status, but just to be happy, because this is actually what we are seeking for as people. And you know what? Nearly 500,000 people enrolled to this course. It's amazing. Okay, so nearly 500,000 people enroll in this course. Okay, online. Okay, in terms of it. But in fact, in terms of physical meeting, we do have this kind of course in the University of Texas with the same name of the course, A Life of Happiness and Fulfillment. And why do we think that we need this kind of course? Because at the end of the day, we would like to see that our students' well-being is number one. The students' well-being, that they can be happy in the life. If they are happy, of course, they will also, because happiness is quite radiant. It's like contagious. If you are happy, the other people around you also are also happy. You can imagine if we are, you can probably have seen some toxic people. For example, we are in a toxic relationship. So we can see, they are emitting like a kind of a negative energy, right? So negative energy is like a kind of a become already a toxic, in our atmosphere or relationship. Now, so if we are talking about differentiated learning and differentiated interaction with emotional regulation, in fact, we are talking about how can we fulfill our students' needs, okay, related to their learning preferences. Because everybody cannot be put into the same bandwagon, for example, and then we are all marching to the same, with the same steps, with the same, pace and the like, because we are all born in different situation, academic background, parents' background, socially, economically. So that brought about differences in our own character and personality. And in that sense, the way we learn something in our own classroom may be different from one another. That is why we really think that, in fact, the way we teach our students, we instruct in courses, should also be tailored to our students' needs and learning preferences. And how do we do that? Well, of course, there are a lot of strategies. You probably have already seen from the multiple intelligence, yeah? For example, like naturalistic, verbal, spatial, and such and such. Okay, there are a lot, But in fact, we do not have to accommodate all of them, but at least we provide several alternatives if the students are not happy learning with, this kind of thing. So, for example, if the students are not able to write a lot, for example, but they probably can talk a lot, we can provide them with the different instruction, like, okay, at the end of the semester, the students are, can produce, alternatively, if they cannot write a paper, for example, then they can produce a video, okay, a podcast, or something to do with, innovative projects related to, for example, English teaching, okay. So this is the introduction from me. Now, next. Now, I'm going to skip this. Probably you are not familiar with this. I'm just actually going to ask you whether you are familiar with stereogram. Are you familiar with stereogram? No? Okay. I challenge you. If you can see the three-dimensional picture within this screen, okay, you're awesome. You try it. Now, This is also learning preferences, or this is like a kind of how we are born with, probably different speed of acquiring skill. I can already see in maybe like 5 seconds, or maybe like in 3 seconds, that I can see this kind of stereogram, that we have like a circular 1, 2, 3, at least 1, 2, 3 circular rounded shapes. And we also have like a kind of circular rounded shape within this. So there are also, of course, there is like a techniques here. We have to learn that actually from the internet. If you see only 2 dimensions, well, of course, this is actually what the picture is all about. But if you can see this 3-dimensional picture using like a kind of, okay, try to focus your sight here behind the image here. So it's like a kind of you are daydreaming, but while you are daydreaming but looking at this picture. So by daydreaming, boom, all of a sudden you are going to see this 3D image in front of you. But I'm not going to test you right now. I'm just actually teaching you whether you are able to see 3-dimensional picture here. Really beautiful. In fact, if you can see that, it's really, really beautiful. I guarantee, I would say. All right, so this is also another, but I'm not going to stop on this. I'm just actually giving you some challenges. You can type later in the internet stereogram, okay, image, and then you are probably going to be instructed how to see 3-dimensional image using particular strategy. Okay. All right, so I would like to start with this humanistic education. So it is probably not new for you, but what is meant by humanistic education is when they are giving choice to our students. So for example, like if there is only one way to measure the students' competence in our own classroom, I would say it's actually not humanistic enough, because we are not providing the students with options or choices, or probably when we are giving them the kind of tasks, and then that is the only task given to them, probably it is not humanistic either. So giving choices for their learning preferences or how they will complete tasks is a humanistic strategy. So always give them choices. If they do not like vegetables, for example, they do not like vegetables, do they like fruits, for example, if they are asking. If they do not like fruits, then probably we can encourage them that vegetables or fruits are very important, nutritious for our body, blah blah blah. Okay, but they let them choose what they can do, okay, in their own learning. And while giving choices here, then of course we can also foster engagements, because then they will be like intrinsically motivated to engage in our own classroom. So giving choices and will also foster engagements. Now, by having this kind of 2 steps, we also do hope that they also self-evaluate their own growth, their own progress. Now, we imagine if we can integrate the knowledge and then also the feelings. Knowledge means like okay, so like a kind of hard knowledge. They would like to understand the history of, for example, like Candi Borobudur or Borobudur Temple. They would like to know the knowledge here. We need to also integrate the feelings, probably while watching videos, probably write some poems or short stories related to what they know about Candi Borobudur. Because if we can integrate the knowledge and then also the students' feelings and also imaginations, then the learning will be really meaningful. It will be deeply embedded in their own mind, okay, in their own brain, rather than if we are only giving them hard knowledge all the time. So when we are teaching, I suggest that we also integrate the students' imagination, because the students' imagination is the key important factor of the student's success. Okay, that imagination and feelings, of course, they are all integrated, but we cannot just actually give them only knowledge per se And then we do hope that they can, do the test later if there is a test, but without integrating the students' feelings and imagination. All right. So the last one is to be safe learning environments. I would say, let me give you an example of the safe learning environments here. So if the students they don't like to, write papers, for example, then they probably have like a kind of resentment, anger or resentments, because in fact they cannot do this, but there is no other way for them to negotiate. Of course, then in this case, they will, well, probably they will rebel, or they will protest, and then such and such and such. So we would like to provide them with the safe learning environments by giving them something which they can do. Okay, this is number one. Number two examples is safe learning environments can also happen if their peers, their friends, they're happy with each other, okay? And they appreciate each other's suggestions, opinions, and the like. You probably have experiences maybe in senior high schools or in your previous education background that some students are being mocked by some other students because they ask silly questions, okay? They bully them sometimes, and I would say that this is not safe learning environments, because the students, they try to restrain themselves. They are shy. They will feel embarrassed if they ask questions, but those questions may be considered silly or stupid questions. Sorry to say stupid question. De-edit, yeah. So silly questions in front of their friends. So we try to avoid this kind of bullying students to other people only when they ask silly questions or not important questions. We really have to make our classroom as safe as possible for the others to grow and to feel safe in their own learning direction or learning trajectory. Okay, I hope you understand what is meant by safe learning environments here. Okay, please try to make their peers to be appreciative as appreciative as possible to other students. No matter how silly the questions are, all questions are welcome. And there is no such thing as silly questions. That's actually what I say to my students in the classroom. There is no such thing as silly questions. All questions are important. Okay. Okay. Now, okay. So this is the humanistic practices. How we can integrate this kind of humanistic education. So, for example, of course, we need to provide goals together with the students, of course, because if the goals here are only set by the teachers without involving the students, this is not what we call humanistic goals, because the students are not involved, okay, in this kind of setting. If the goal seems to be too high, of course, the teacher can negotiate with the students. If it is too high, all right. And the student probably can also add more important goals together with the teachers, because probably they also have some rewarding goals to pursue, okay, in the course. And then opportunities, giving them more opportunities, because opportunities, to be engaged or to be involved, to contribute here will be like a kind of motivating for them. Okay, so we give also motivating and challenging learning opportunities in this case. And safety, as I probably have already mentioned here, no bullying in the classroom, no silly questions. All questions are appreciated, but also in the parts on the part of the teachers, we also provide the students with this kind of safe learning environment. I have to tell you, some lecturers or some teachers, they do not permit the students to go outside if they have an urge to go to the toilet. Who can guarantee in our life within 15 or 30 minutes, we do not have an urge to go to the toilets? Well, of course, I understand that we can anticipate, before coming to class, we can go to the toilet first. But, well, sometimes our health probably in a particular, our health is probably in a particular condition that we need to go to the toilets. And some teachers, some lecturers, they prohibit the students to go to the toilets when they are already in the classroom, so that all the students will pay attention to the learning. Well, yes, the is actually very good, but I have to say we cannot regulate everybody's health in the classroom. You can see that there are 40 students in the classroom. How can we as a teacher regulate their health condition in this case? Okay. And drinking, well, this is actually really, of course, really dependent on the situation, of course. If it is in the, for example, like a micro teaching laboratory where you have carpets, blah, 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 okay, with this kind of equipment, facilities, electronic stuff and the like, okay, of course, we can add that. But in a regular class, I would say drinking is encouraged, okay? Drinking is healthy, and if you can have drinking in terms of, like I suggest mineral water or just water, okay, but not beer or green sense and the like, in the classroom, because that would be, or like a kind of a hot coffee, because it smells quite, tempting for the teachers too, so drinking just water, just like mineral water, just water is actually preferred, okay, but not beer and the like. Okay, reflection, self-evaluation with the simple questions. It's also encouraged that, at the end of the classroom, you try to ask the students with one simple question. It doesn't have to be lengthy sentences. It may just like a 1 or 2 sentences, written using Padlet, or maybe like a kind of a piece of paper, telling about what they have already understood or not understood yet, in the classroom. And probably we can also ask them about their feelings. Okay, so reflection is also important, and then we try to also address this issue. All right, next, yeah, this one is a principle of differentiated instruction. This is rather technical. I'm not going to discuss this in depth, but I would say that we have to respect the students' differences, including, as I mentioned earlier, if the students address unique questions which probably are quite, well, people say quite silly and the like, but respect students' differences. They are coming from different background, coming from different ethnicities and the like, and probably the knowledge, the way they learn, the way they speak, the way they behave, speaking in the classroom are different from one another. We have to appreciate them or respect them. We also have to explicitly instruct the other students to respect students' differences. We understand that in some classrooms, there are some students who probably act a bit, I have to say, I have to say, nerd, for example, quite awkward, clumsy in the classroom. Yeah, try to approach them, try to, well, they have some conditions, some situations probably why they are acting like that. But, if we welcome their presence, their existence in the classroom, by inviting to talk, negotiating and such, then they will feel, those students, I do believe that, they will progress and then make some degree of growth. Assessment and instruction as continued. You probably have already understood this, that assessments and instructions are all going hand in hand. Okay, so in fact, I would say assessment is not necessary. Tests is not necessary if we are undergoing or we are undertaking like a meaningful process in the classroom. Because if we are undertaking meaningful instruction in the classroom, we have already understood the level of our students already. Test is only to measure how knowledgeable our students are. And by doing this kind of a good rewarding process, the teachers actually can understand how well the students can perform in the classroom. Okay, so this is like a kind of test-oriented, process-oriented instruction by integrating assessment within the classroom. And flexibility of grouping students, yeah, okay. Sometimes we group the students with all the smart students, and sometimes a mixed ability of the students. And variation of learning styles in the materials, of course. Sometimes we can use images, a lot of big images, a lot of videos, and then discussing the videos in the classroom. Sometimes we can also use text, okay? Okay, and then continuous reflection and adaptation, okay? So, how many of you have watched this movie, Freedom Writers? A lot? Hello? How many of you?
I have watched.
All right, great, great. Yeah, okay. So at least you have already understood the plots of the story. So
Yeah.
this is the this is really great movie. If you wish to become a teacher, or for example, even if you do not want to become a teacher, it is still a rewarding movie to watch. This we have a lot of gangsters students in the classroom. You can imagine that, and then they are coming from different ethnicities, ethnic backgrounds, colors of the skins, and such and such. And some of them actually belongs to a particular gangsters, and in the classroom, in fact, they're enemies. Can you imagine? They are enemies outside of the classroom, and then we put them together in the classroom in only a few meters away from them. You can imagine how bad the situation is. Outside of the classroom, they can fight, okay, even they can kill each other. And how can we imagine? And they are put in one classroom with one teacher, a female teacher like this, Erin. So, okay, let me give you just a brief, what is it? A brief, I like a kind of short movie after this, maybe like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I do think I have time, because this is very important. How can those students who are coming from different backgrounds and even very hostile to each other, at the end they can appreciate and embrace each other? They can be friends with each other. And that is one technique, how to be friends with each other, by giving them that they have commonalities. Of course, they are different, but in fact, they are seeking for the commonalities, seeking for the common good for them together. So not looking or sharpening the differences, but even looking up the similarities among them. Now, the technique which are done, or which is done in the movie, is like the line games. Okay, let me line games in. So, see, these are all the gangsters. See, the similarity happened here, although they're enemies. See, giving choices. See, this is the highlights. Then the teacher asked the students to pray for those who have died because of gangster war. All right, so this one. That's it. Okay, so you can see that what is it? The teacher always, gives them choices, options. The teacher will not read the diary unless the students permits the teacher to read the diary. The diary is very personal, very private. It's like a kind of their own privacy. But if they allow the student and the teacher to read the diary, then they have to put the diary in the teacher's cupboard. Okay, now, so this is the same as you have already been familiar with this Ibu from Pangandaran, Ibu Susi Pujiastuti, and you probably have already understood that she was the former Minister of Maritime Affairs and Fisheries, as well as now still the President Director of Susi Air. Okay, and you know what? Susi Pujiastuti did not even graduate from a senior high school. So if you can ask her, she is only a graduate from junior high school. Okay, she couldn't complete, or she decided not to complete her senior high school study. But she is a great person by saying that if teachers are unable to inspire children to love learning by giving them the freedom to ask questions and experimenting, children will not actually develop. Okay, so this is it. I do hope that you can learn from this one. Okay. I heard someone say, Judith, did you say something?
Yeah, excuse me, Pak Kus, 5 more minutes.
All right. Okay,
Yeah.
5 more minutes. Thank you very much. Okay, let me come to this one. All right, so this one is the psychological impact. Now, this is just reviewing what I have already mentioned, that differentiated instruction provides the students with the learning preferences, what they really like. And indeed, in this kind of modern era, in the post-COVID, I would say learning preferences is a must, is an obligation. Okay, and learning preferences will also provide the students with what we call self-efficacy, that the students think they are able to complete the task So the belief, the strong conviction that the students are able to complete the task is really important. Okay, it's like a kind of self-confidence, like self-esteem. Yes, I can do it. It's really important if they are given sufficient learning preferences. Okay, now this is also related to what we call self-determination theory. I think this is also the highlights of today's talk. That if in our life we do have like 5 basic psychological needs. Now, 5 basic psychological needs is autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Autonomy means that everybody needs to be autonomous. They would like to be independent in their course of action. Okay, they, of course, they do not like to be always instructed by someone else to do things. They would like to have freedom to choose what they like, freedom to choose to act, and freedom to choose to set up their own goals. This is like autonomy. This is like freedom. And then competence. It's like everybody needs to have like a competence. So for example, like if you are not able to ride a bike, for example, when you were children, you really want to ride a bike, and then you try to exercise and try to practice how to ride a bike. You often fall down, okay, and then you hurt yourself, injure yourself. You still would like to try to practice how to ride a bike. And when you can do it, riding a bike, it's such a lovely feeling, to experience or to have. Everybody needs to have like a kind of competence, at least something coming from your intrinsic motivation. And the last one is relatedness. Relatedness means like the connection of the significant others. Of course, significant others can be like your parents, can be your teachers, can be your good circle of friends, like a kind of your gang members, circle of friends, you would like to have kind of relatedness. I think nobody enjoy living alone, okay? They need to have some friends. It doesn't have to be many, but at least like 1 or 2, they have some good friends. This kind of good friends will give them encouragement in their own psychological needs. But of course, they can also share their knowledge, share what they are able to do with the significant others. So if we can guarantee that in our classroom, this kind of 3 basic psychological needs given in our classroom, of course, it will foster what we call volition. Volition means the desire to act, desire, willingness to act. Of course, volition and motivation is actually like a kind of interrelated, but volition means the action itself, which is coming from intrinsic motivation. And of course, it will result in enhanced performance, persistence, and creativity. All right. So if I do have some time later, I'm going to talk about, this kind of psychological foundation of differentiated learning. We understand that there are also some anxiety level, and then also self-esteem in, psychologically, self-confidence, creativity, and interest of learning. Okay, I can talk about that later. But what is most important is here. In differentiated instruction, we try to avoid what is meant by anxiety here. And, in the journal papers, it has already been explained that anxiety really inhibits learning. The biggest obstacles of learning is excessive anxiety. As you probably have already understood from the theory from Krashen's, we have affective filter hypothesis. In the affective filter hypothesis here, we try to make sure that our students are having this kind of anxiety feelings when they are learning something. And how to do that, how to make sure that the students are not anxious, is by giving them like a kind of, as I've already mentioned here, options or preferences, and they are not asked to do something which is really beyond their level of competence. Like a kind of input +1 hypothesis, if you have already learned from that, the teachers needs to make sure that the materials for the students are not too high beyond the student's level of competence. So make sure that it's just slightly beyond the level of the student's competence. That is the student's, challenge, but not too anxious. Slightly anxious is okay, slightly anxious, but not too anxious, because slight anxious means it is like a kind of the juice of motivation. It's like the boost for motivation also. That, you know, sometimes, you know, when we do have like a final examination, we are a bit anxious, of course, but this kind of slight anxious here can drive us to learn more. Okay, not because if it is too comfortable, then there is no no challenge. We need to also be in the discomfort zone here in this case. All right, so there are several slides more here, but I'm going to stop share screen right now. If we do have some questions, and questions here are related to my slides, then I can explain more from my slides. Okay.
Yeah.
Bu Judy, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Kus. What a insightful information. It seems that there is no questions on chat box, but I have a question, sir. Regarding the level of our students, I mean, the level of their cognitive level, is there any suggestions, or is there any students project or students activity that we can do to accommodate the humanistic education?
Related to the students level, of course, there is no one best recipe. Okay, there's no panacea in order to understand, you know, the students' same level of competence. But what we can understand is try to negotiate with the students whether a particular project is too demanding for them or not. Now, the negotiations here is like a kind of giving them options, choices. But of course, we need to challenge them, of course. Okay, so we have to make sure that the task is not too easy for them, right? If it is too easy for them, then there is no learning development. So learning developments can only be executed if there is challenges. Now, challenges here, but of course, challenges here should be negotiated whether this is too high for them or even too low. So we have to give them the right challenge. And what is the right challenge? Of course, we put, you know, in our own idealism. Okay, as a teacher, our goal, the students should be, you know, perform this, for example. And then we can think of our students' level of competence. If it is in our classroom, the students' level of competence are quite varied. We probably can put them into one. And then it is instructed by the teachers. But there is always like a cons and pros, you know, whether the grouping here is instructed by the teachers. It may happen, it may so happen that some students are resentful to each other, but they are grouped into one, you know, they are grouped into one, you know, one group, you know, as a group. So I think we need to also understand that if there are problems, those problems can all be communicated to teachers, okay? But of course, we need to also understand that the students may have some personal problems. If it is possible, they may solve their own personal problems by themselves, because this is also educating. Not all problems will be solved by the teachers, of course. All right. So some personal problems or friendship problems, indeed, it may affect or influence the grouping, but to some extent, we may also try to educate our students that some personal problems should not intrude or interfere professional problems or professional projects. Because when we are talking about academic projects, this is like professional. So we need to educate or rehearse or exercise this kind of feelings to our students, that it may so happen that the students may not be, you know, get along well, you know, with the other students. But we need to teach them, we need to educate them. Okay, personally, probably they are not cocok, gitu ya, cannot get along well with the others. But when we are talking about academic projects or academic performance, they have to collaborate, okay? And then they have to set aside those communication problems or personal problems. I think in that sense, then we can become professional. Okay, cannot avoid personal problems, but try to be professional. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Pak Kus. Oh, it seems that we have Angela. You have questions to Pak Kus.
Okay.
Yeah, time is
Yes.
yours.
All right, thank you, Miss. Okay, thank you, Pa. I have probably it's not really related to our topic, but I hope I got the answer for my question here, Pa. We know all that some of our students, they come to the class just because of their parents. So like the lack of motivation to come to study in the classroom. We teachers, we have prepared, we can say that the lesson plans are well prepared, and then suddenly they come with again. So how to deal with the kind of students, Pa? And the second, I was always thinking about not only the students we need to educate, but also the parents. But we know parents right now. They got a lot of on their plate, so I guess it's kind of hard to even to if we need to meet the parents. They always got some reason that can we do it next time, Miss, something like that. So I always think that so much there are so much in their plate. So something that we can communicate about their children, it doesn't meet at all. All right. So what can you, how can you will deal with those with this kind of situation, Pak? Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Ibu Angela, for the question. So this is really good questions, but very hard to answer. All right. Because there are two problems here. This is like the communication problems from parents and the motivation problem from students. So at least there are two problems in this case. But we have to solve this one by one, okay? But these are all related. So we can actually discuss first. If we cannot discuss with the students, then probably we can invite the teachers here in a parents meeting. In Jawa Tengah or Central Java, we have a school named Vanlit, okay? SMA Vanlit. In SMA Vanlit, they have what is it? A program called, if I'm not mistaken, School for Parents. So School for Parents. That means the schools invite their parents, because this is dormitory, yeah, they are kind of dormitory school. So they invite the teachers, sorry, the parents to schools for like 3 days, like 3 days, and they try to talk to parents. We are not in a position of teaching the parents, but not trying to mingle with parents and try to understand about their own wishes, really wants and the like. And we also need to provide the school programs and then the goals of the education, for example. So we need to also even teach, not teach, yeah, because this is it's not a right word. We need to tell them some psychological foundations of education. So for example, like we need to give them choices. We also need to understand their like feelings, such and such. But to some extent, we also need to set the goals for our children. But the goals here and the means and the process how to achieve the goals can always be negotiated. So because I understand that some parents are strict, they educate the children as they were educated by their own parents in the long time ago in the past, and it seems that the mistakes that they didn't, the mistakes that they had, okay, they experienced in the past would be now compensated so that it doesn't happen to their children. That is why they have so much, in their own mind how to educate children, and that means too overwhelming for their own children. So step by step. So the theory of input plus one, do not give the children, the students, too high expectation is also important. and we need to also give the principles of education for children. I think by providing this kind of information to our parents, to the parents, they probably can improve their communication modes or communication strategies to the children. Because now, I have already mentioned probably previously, the most problematic area of education is communication problems. Communication problems from children to their parents and vice versa, or communication problems in the schools, okay, from teachers to students. Sometimes the teachers, they set up goals, but the goals here are not really explained why the goals are so important for them, and no negotiation room. There is no space for negotiation. So I think this is also a problem. So if I may suggest, if there are problems like this, if it can be done, then we do have like a kind of school for parents, or invite the parents here to schools, and we try to listen. Okay, the schools try to listen to their wishes, and we also need to tell them the psychological foundation of education, that we cannot force our children to be the way they like, okay, the way they wish, but they should be able to develop with a course of action, with their own needs also. Because sometimes parents, they do not know the psychological needs of their own children. I think that is really crucial, okay, to understand that. Maybe it doesn't answer the questions here in full length or comprehensively, but at least that's what we can do.
Yeah, thank you, Pak Kus. I hope Ibu Angela, you are satisfied for the questions, but if you have more questions, we can send it to Pak Kus.
Sure.
Yeah. Pak Kus, this is really interesting, and we'd like to hear more later, and I hope you're willing for the next webinar, or maybe you can come to Toraja.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but we are sorry that this is a limited time. And Ibu Fani, can we make a picture with Pak Kus before leaving this webinar? Thank you. Back to Ibu Silvani.
Okay, Miss, thank you so much. And Mr. Kuswandono, PhD, thank you for the great presentation and more information and knowledge for us especially. Okay, photo session for our great keynote speaker. Keep smile. Not angry smile. Okay, maybe we can say together, Hermes.
Hermes.
Okay, after the for photo session, and wait for a moment. Okay, for our information, ladies and gentlemen and all participants, don't forget tomorrow we'll be held to start our national webinar for the second day tomorrow at 9 AM waktu Indonesia Tengah. Dan especially for tomorrow, there are 5 keynote speakers. There are 5 keynote speakers, and I hope we have a good condition and keep spirit to get more information and knowledge from other keynote speaker tomorrow. Okay, I see our next agenda. Maybe some information from the committee before the closing prayer. No more information. Oh, I forgot. Tomorrow there is a parallel session for article presentation. And I think maybe 10 presenters tomorrow. So I hope we are ready to present our article. especially for the presenter. Okay, I think that's all my information. I invite Dr. Roni. Are you there, Dr. Roni? Okay. May I invite Dr. and Rachel to lead us closing prayer? To close our activity, our webinar, national webinar today.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so we thank God that finally we are at the end of our first day of the national webinar held by UKI Toraja. So let's closing our activity today with a prayer. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for being with us from the beginning until the end of our first day national seminar. We thank you for all the keynote speakers, for all the participants, for all the committee who take part in this webinar. We pray that all information, knowledge, and everything that we got from this seminar, you will help us to use it and apply it in our teaching and learning process. Thank you for Pak Kus, Prof. Jasmine, juga Mr. Cohen, who be the keynote speakers for this session, and all the participants. We pray for the next day of this seminar. Please bless all the keynote speakers and presenters and all the participants, as well as the committee of this webinar. Forgive our sins. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Alfie, for the closing prayer. Thank you for all the keynote speaker or lecturers of English Education Study Program, all students. Thank you, students, and all teachers, maybe. Miss Angela from Bambino School. Thank you.
Business meeting di Sumatera.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
everyone.
See you in Sumatera. Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye.
Yeah,
Bye-bye. I should leave.
Okay, see you tomorrow, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Lift kita dulu.
Oke, izin live.
Kenapa tidak mau Bang bertanya tadi mahasiswa? Siap nak mau bayar 100.000 nak.
Miss, saya bertanya bayar kah?
Ibu bukan mahasiswa. Ini sahabat semua tidak mau bergabung. Mau bertanya sebentar saja. Apa ini? Putri Fadila, Julita Rombe, Yabes, Sofia.
Yo, besok masuk di apa sesi apa itu?
Iyo, mau ku bayar 100.000 tidak mau 100.000 ya kembali ke kantong.
Besok. Saya dibayar.
Siapkan untuk besok lagi, tapi tidak tahu kalau moderatornya mau. Oke.
Aduh.